From a cast that was allegedly high during filming to a fake heart attack routine that eerily predicted the star's real death, Sanford and Son hides some of television's most bizarre secrets. Did you know the show's storefront was 16 miles away from its supposed location, or that one cast member supposedly supplied drugs to the entire crew? These shocking behind-the-scenes revelations about America's groundbreaking junk dealer comedy will leave you saying, "You big dummy," for not knowing them sooner. Here are the 15 weird facts you didn't know about Sanford and Son. Fact 1. The cast was allegedly high during filming. In a shocking revelation that came to light decades after the show ended, Demond Wilson, who played Lamont Sanford, admitted that the entire cast of Sanford and Son was frequently under the influence of drugs while filming the beloved sitcom. During a 2015 interview, Wilson dropped this bombshell when discussing his relationship with co-star Nathaniel Taylor, who played his best friend Rollo on the show. According to Wilson, the reason why he and Taylor appeared to have such great chemistry on screen, despite actually disliking each other in real life, was because they were all high most of the time during filming. But perhaps the most surprising part of Wilson's confession was his claim about who was supplying the drugs to the cast. He alleged that LaWanda Page, the actress who played the deeply religious and morally upright Aunt Esther, was actually their drug dealer. This revelation is particularly stunning when you consider Page's character on the show. Aunt Esther was Fred Sanford's sister-in-law who constantly preached about morality and Christian values, often clashing with Fred over his drinking and scheming ways. She was portrayed as the moral compass of the show, always calling out bad behavior and threatening Fred with the wrath of God. The idea that the actress playing this righteous character was allegedly supplying drugs to her fellow cast members creates an almost unbelievable contrast between fiction and reality. Wilson made these claims during a candid discussion about the behind-the-scenes dynamics of the show, explaining that this drug use helped the cast get along better and created the illusion of friendship between characters whose actors didn't actually like each other. While these allegations have never been independently verified, Wilson's willingness to discuss such sensitive topics suggests he was being honest about the chaotic environment behind one of television's most beloved family sitcoms. The revelation adds a completely different layer to understanding how one of the most successful shows of the 1970s was actually produced, showing that the wholesome family dynamics viewers saw on screen were far from the reality of what was happening behind the cameras. Fact 2. Red Fox's real death mirrored his TV routine. One of the most tragically ironic moments in television history occurred on October 11, 1991, when Red Fox's real-life death eerily mirrored the fake heart attack routine that made him famous on Sanford and Son. During rehearsals for his new CBS sitcom, The Royal Family, Fox suddenly collapsed from an actual heart attack. But his fellow cast members initially thought he was just performing one of his signature comedy bits. Throughout Sanford and Son, Fred Sanford's most famous running gag involved clutching his chest dramatically and crying out to his deceased wife Elizabeth whenever things didn't go his way. He would stagger around, grab his chest, and shout phrases like, "Oh, this is the big one! You hear that, Elizabeth? I'm coming to join you, honey!" These fake heart attacks became so iconic that they were practically Fox's trademark, and he was known for being exceptionally skilled at physical comedy and pratfalls. On that fateful day in 1991, Fox was rehearsing with his co-stars, including Della Reese, when he was reportedly cracking jokes and entertaining everyone as usual. According to witnesses, he was sort of breaking people up with his humor when he suddenly grabbed a chair and fell to the floor. Because Fox was so famous for his fake heart attack routine and was such a master of physical comedy, the cast and crew members present initially assumed this was just another one of his impromptu performances. It wasn't until Fox didn't immediately get back up that people realized something was seriously wrong. Della Reese went to check on him and heard him say, "Get my wife," twice before she called for paramedics. The tragic irony wasn't lost on entertainment reporters, with Entertainment Weekly noting that it was an end so ironic that for a brief moment castmates figured Fox was kidding when he grabbed a chair and fell to the floor. Fox was rushed to Queen of Angels Hollywood Presbyterian Medical Center, where he was temporarily resuscitated, but he was pronounced dead 4.5 hours after admission at 68 years old. Fact 3. The storefront was 16 miles from its location. While viewers of Sanford and Son watched Fred and Lamont operate their junk business from what was supposedly 9114 South Central Avenue in the Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles, the actual storefront used in the show's opening and closing credits was located nearly 16 miles away in a completely different part of the city. The real building that served as the exterior of Sanford and Son Salvage was actually situated at 10,659 West Magnolia Boulevard in North Hollywood. This geographic deception is particularly interesting because the show's setting in Watts was crucial to its identity and social commentary. Watts was known as a predominantly African-American neighborhood in south-central Los Angeles, and placing the Sanford family's business there was an important part of the show's authenticity and cultural representation. However, the practical realities of television production meant that the producers needed to find a suitable building that could serve as the storefront, regardless of where it was actually located. The storefront on Magnolia Boulevard appeared only in the opening credits, where viewers would see Lamont driving up in the famous 1951 Ford pickup truck, and in the closing credits, where Fred and Lamont could be seen loading junk into the back of the truck. Interestingly, this exterior location never appeared in any of the actual episodes during the show's 6-season run from 1972 to 1977. All of the junkyard scenes and the interior and exterior shots of the Sanford home that appeared throughout the episodes were actually filmed on elaborate sets built inside NBC studios in Burbank. The building on Magnolia Boulevard was used solely for those brief establishing shots that helped create the illusion of the family's business location. The original storefront building has since been demolished, having been torn down in March of 1989 along with the adjacent property. New structures were built in their place that same year, so fans looking to visit the location today won't find any trace of the original building that served as the face of one of television's most famous fictional businesses. Fact 4. Co-stars Nathaniel Taylor and Demond Wilson hated each other. Despite appearing as the best of friends on screen, Nathaniel Taylor and Demond Wilson, who played Rollo and Lamont respectively, actually couldn't stand each other in real life and maintained this mutual dislike for decades after the show ended. This shocking revelation came to light during separate interviews, where both actors confirmed that their on-screen chemistry was completely manufactured and that they had genuine animosity toward each other behind the scene. In the show, Rollo Lawson was Lamont's loyal best friend who frequently hung around the Sanford junkyard, much to Fred's constant annoyance. Fred often referred to Rollo as a criminal and didn't trust him, but Lamont always defended his friend, and their bond appeared unbreakable. The two characters shared countless scenes together, laughing, scheming, and supporting each other through various situations, creating what seemed like a genuine friendship that viewers found believable and endearing. However, the reality was far different from what audiences saw on television. In a 2015 interview, Demond Wilson revealed that when asked about his relationship with Nathaniel Taylor, he simply stated, "He never liked me." Wilson went on to explain that they hadn't seen each other since 1977 when the show ended, indicating that their professional relationship didn't extend beyond the studio lot. Nathaniel Taylor confirmed this tension from his own perspective during a 2017 interview at a classic car convention. When discussing his time on the show, Taylor made it clear that while he got along great with Red Fox and enjoyed working with him, his relationship with the other guy, referring to Demond Wilson, was problematic. Taylor stated matter-of-factly, "We didn't get along too well, it happens." What makes this situation even more remarkable is that Taylor only appeared in 32 episodes throughout the show's run, and he later claimed that Wilson prevented him from doing more episodes, suggesting that their off-screen conflict may have actually limited his role on the series. Fact 5. Cleavon Little started the casting chain reaction. The entire casting of Sanford and Son can be traced back to one pivotal moment when Cleavon Little, who would later become famous for his starring role in Blazing Saddles, was originally approached to work on the project but had to turn it down due to prior commitments. However, instead of simply declining the offer, Little made two crucial recommendations that would shape television history and launch one of the most successful sitcoms of the 1970s. When the producers were looking for their lead actor, they had Cleavon Little in mind for what would become the role of Lamont Sanford. Little had already established himself as a talented actor and seemed like a perfect fit for the show, which was being adapted from the British series Sanford and Son by Norman Lear and Bud Yorkin. However, Little's schedule prevented him from taking on the commitment, so he suggested Red Fox for the father role of Fred Sanford. Having worked with Fox in the 1970 film Cotton Comes to Harlem, where Fox had actually played a junk dealer. But Little's influence on the show's casting didn't stop there. He also recommended Demond Wilson for the son's role, having recently worked with Wilson on an episode of All in the Family titled Edith Writes a Song, where they both played burglars who broke into the Bunker household. Their collaboration in that 1971 episode had given Little first-hand experience of Wilson's acting abilities and screen presence. This recommendation proved to be incredibly fortunate because Wilson had caught the attention of executive producer Bud Yorkin during that same All in the Family appearance, where he played a burglar who broke into Archie Bunker's house. Wilson later reflected on his decision to take the role, saying, "I thought about it long and hard and decided to take a chance. Red and I thought we could grab some quick cash, plus notoriety, then move on to the next project." Without Cleavon Little's generous recommendations, the iconic partnership between Red Fox and Demond Wilson might never have happened, and television history would have been completely different. Fact 6. The show killed the Brady Bunch. In one of television's most dramatic scheduling battles, Sanford and Son single-handedly caused the cancellation of The Brady Bunch in 1974 by completely dominating the Friday night 8 o'clock time slot and stealing away viewers from the wholesome family sitcom. This television showdown has gone down in history as a perfect example of how competing networks could destroy each other's programming through strategic scheduling decisions. Both shows aired on Friday nights at 8 o'clock, with Sanford and Son on NBC and The Brady Bunch on ABC, creating a direct head-to-head competition that would ultimately prove fatal for the Brady family. When Sanford and Son premiered in January of 1972, The Brady Bunch was already in its third season and had established a loyal following among families across America. However, the appeal of Fred and Lamont's hilarious antics in their Watts junkyard proved to be irresistible to television audiences. The ratings battle was swift and decisive, with Sanford and Son putting what industry insiders described as enough of a dent into the Brady Bunch's audience to drive it completely off the air after 5 seasons. The contrast between the two shows couldn't have been more stark. While The Brady Bunch focused on the innocent adventures of a blended suburban family with 6 children, Sanford and Son offered edgy humor, racial commentary, and the cantankerous antics of a junk dealer and his long-suffering son. Sanford and Son peaked at number 2 in the Nielsen ratings during both the 1972-73 season and the 1974-75 season, establishing itself as one of the most popular shows on television and second only to All in the Family during those years. The show's success was so overwhelming that it not only destroyed The Brady Bunch, but also helped NBC's entire Friday night lineup achieve remarkable success, with multiple shows ranking in the top 15 most-watched programs on television. This scheduling victory demonstrated the power of Norman Lear's groundbreaking approach to television comedy and marked a significant shift in what American audiences wanted to watch during prime time. Fact 7. Richard Pryor and Paul Mooney co-wrote episodes. 2 of the most groundbreaking and celebrated episodes of Sanford and Son were actually written by comedy legends Richard Pryor and Paul Mooney, who collaborated during the show's second season to create some of the series' most memorable and frank storylines. The episodes The Dowry and Sanford and Son and Sister Makes 3 were co-written by this legendary comedy duo, bringing their unique perspective and cutting-edge humor to the already successful sitcom. The Dowry, which aired on September 29, 1972, featured one of the show's more light-hearted and funnier storylines where Fred's cousin Grady brings his overweight stepdaughter to visit, and she stands to receive a $10,000 dowry on her wedding day. This sets Fred to playing matchmaker with Lamont, creating hilarious situations as Fred tries to convince his son to marry the woman for the money. The episode showcased Pryor and Mooney's ability to blend comedy with social commentary, as they explored themes of marriage, money, and family expectations. The second collaboration, Sanford and Son and Sister Makes Three, aired on December 1, 1972, and dealt with more serious themes when Fred's old flame Juanita brings her daughter Alice to dinner, and it becomes love at first sight for Lamont. This episode was noted for being particularly frank and celebrated for its honest portrayal of relationships and family dynamics, reflecting the kind of fearless storytelling that both Pryor and Mooney were known for in their individual careers. These episodes have been described as easily two of the most celebrated entries in the entire series run, with critics and fans noting that they were ahead of their time in terms of their social commentary and comedic approach. The collaboration between Pryor and Mooney brought a level of authenticity and edge to the show that perfectly complemented Red Fox's performance style and the series' overall commitment to addressing real issues within the African-American community while still maintaining its comedic foundation. Both writers were already establishing themselves as major forces in comedy, and their contribution to Sanford and Son represented an important moment where television comedy was becoming more sophisticated and socially aware. Fact 8. Red Fox paid for music rights out of his own pocket. Red Fox was such a devoted fan of the 1930s vocal group, the Ink Spots, that when NBC refused to pay the expensive licensing fees for their songs, he actually reached into his own wallet to cover the costs so he could continue singing their music on Sanford and Son. This dedication to incorporating the music he loved into the show demonstrates just how personally invested Fox was in making Fred Sanford's character authentic and meaningful to him. The Ink Spots were a pioneering African-American vocal group known for their distinctive harmonies and romantic ballads, and their music had clearly made a deep impression on Fox throughout his life. During episodes of Sanford and Son, Fred Sanford would often break into song, particularly when he was feeling nostalgic or trying to impress someone, and many of these musical moments featured songs from the Ink Spots catalog. These singing scenes became some of the most memorable and endearing moments in the series, showing a softer side of the usually cantankerous junk dealer. However, the rights to use the Ink Spots music were extremely expensive, reflecting both the popularity and the enduring value of their songs decades after they were originally recorded. When the network executives at NBC calculated the cost of licensing these songs for use in the show, they determined that the expense was too high and refused to approve the expenditure. Rather than simply abandon the idea of having Fred Sanford sing these beloved songs, Fox made the remarkable decision to pay the licensing fees himself. This financial commitment was particularly significant because, according to producer Bud Yorkin, Red Fox was notoriously generous with his money and was often in debt as a result of his spending habits. Yorkin revealed that when Fox found himself short on cash, he would sometimes tell the show's producers that he was sick and that his doctor had advised him that he wasn't eating enough, essentially using his health as leverage in financial negotiations. The fact that Fox was willing to spend his own money on music rights, despite his known financial struggles, shows how important these songs were to him personally and how committed he was to bringing authenticity to his character's musical expressions. Fact 9. Gary Shandling was a show writer. Long before Gary Shandling became famous for revolutionizing television comedy with The Gary Shandling Show and The Larry Sanders Show, he was just beginning his career as a television writer and contributed 4 episodes to Sanford and Son during seasons 5 and 6. This early writing work took place between 1975 and 1976, when Shandling was still developing his unique comedic voice and learning the craft of television writing that would later make him one of the most innovative creators in comedy history. Shandling's 4 episodes for Sanford and Son were Sanford and Son, The Director, The Camping Trip, and Committee Man, with Sanford and Son being his first contribution to the series. This episode aired on November 21, 1975, and featured a storyline where Lamont surprises his father with a dinner prepared by their neighbor Ah Chu, played by Pat Morita, whose family considered cooking to be an art form. The episode showcased Shandling's ability to blend character-driven humor with cultural themes, a skill that would become a hallmark of his later work. Working on Sanford and Son provided Shandling with invaluable experience in writing for established characters and understanding how to craft episodes that fit within an existing show's tone and style. The series was known for its sharp dialogue and social commentary, and contributing to such a successful and groundbreaking show gave Shandling the opportunity to work alongside experienced television professionals and learn from some of the best writers in the business. At the time Shandling was writing for Sanford and Son, he was still in the early stages of his career and hadn't yet developed the meta-comedic style and behind-the-scenes focus that would later define his most famous works. His episodes for the show demonstrated his talent for creating funny situations and believable character interactions, skills that would serve him well when he eventually created his own series that would break new ground in television comedy. These early writing credits on Sanford and Son represent an important stepping stone in Shandling's career, showing how future comedy legends often got their start working on established hits before developing their own distinctive voices. Fact 10. The famous truck is now in Ohio. The iconic 1951 Ford F1 pickup truck that appeared in the opening and closing credits of Sanford and Son has had quite a journey since the show ended, and today it sits fully restored in the showroom of Blue Line Classics, a classic car dealership in North Royalton, Ohio. The truck's current owners, Tim Franco and Jeff Cantor, purchased it in 2014 and have lovingly restored it to its exact condition as it appeared on the television series. After Sanford and Son ended its original run in 1977, Red Fox actually kept the truck at his own Las Vegas home, and it was briefly returned to NBC when they needed it for the spin-off series Sanford in 1980. Following that, the truck was sold at auction to Bill Milks, and then in 1987, it was purchased by Donald Dimmitt of Dimmitt's Auto Salvage in Argos, Indiana, for $3,500. Dimmitt, who was fittingly a real-life junk dealer just like Fred Sanford, owned the truck for many years before it eventually went up for sale again. Tim Franco and Jeff Cantor, who described themselves as two of the biggest Sanford and Son fans you could ever meet, were determined to win the auction when the truck became available. The two childhood friends, who had been police squad car partners and later founded their classic car dealership together, stayed at their shop until the very end of the online auction, even cracking open a bottle of Ripple wine to build up their bidding courage in true Fred Sanford fashion. Since acquiring the truck, Blue Line Classics has turned it into a major attraction at their dealership, and it has been displayed at various locations throughout Cleveland. The truck has also been signed by several surviving cast members from the show, including Demond Wilson, who played Lamont, Gregory Sierra, who played Julio, and Raymond Allen, who played Uncle Woody. In 2016, the dealership even hosted a Sanford and Son reunion event where actors Nathaniel Taylor, Hal Williams, and Howard Platt appeared alongside the famous truck. Fact 11. CBS originally wanted Italian characters. When Norman Lear and Bud Yorkin first pitched Sanford and Son to CBS, the network executives were extremely hesitant about having black actors in the lead roles and actually pushed for the main characters to be Italian or Jewish junk dealers instead. This resistance from CBS ultimately led to one of the biggest programming mistakes in television history, as the show would go on to become a massive hit for their rival network NBC. CBS executive Fred Silverman was particularly apprehensive about casting black actors for the series because several of his previous shows featuring African American performers had failed to find audiences. Silverman and producer Aaron Rubin believed that having Irish, Italian, or Jewish characters would work better with television audiences of the early 1970s, reflecting the network's lack of confidence in the potential for successful black-led programming. The original idea for the show was so committed to avoiding black characters that CBS actually held a test screening featuring Paul Sorvino and Barney Hughes in the main roles, essentially trying to create an Italian-American version of the British Steptoe and Son format. However, this test screening was a complete disaster, with the scene failing to work and the chemistry between the actors falling flat, proving that simply changing the ethnicity of the characters wasn't going to create successful television. After CBS continued to resist the concept of black junk dealers, Lear and Yorkin took their idea to NBC, who immediately loved the concept and understood the potential for groundbreaking television. NBC executives recognized that the show could offer something completely different from what was currently on television and were willing to take the creative risk that CBS had rejected. Fred Silverman later admitted that this was one of the stupidest things I did at CBS, explaining that when Lear and Yorkin came in with the pitch, they had failed to mention that Red Fox would star or that it would feature black characters. Silverman recalled thinking that they were just trying to sell CBS a show they already had, since it sounded similar to the father-son dynamic of All in the Family, completely missing the revolutionary potential of the series. Fact 12. The dressing room window myth explained. One of the most persistent and widespread myths about why Red Fox left Sanford and Son in 1977 involves a supposedly petty dispute over NBC not giving him a dressing room with a window, but the real story behind his departure was actually much more straightforward and had everything to do with money. The media widely reported this dressing room window story, which became so famous that it was even referenced in a later episode of the show itself, but the truth was that ABC had made Fox an offer he simply couldn't refuse. The window story became so embedded in television folklore that the show's writers actually incorporated it into an episode called Steinberg and Son, where a character playing a junk dealer demands that NBC remove the windows from his dressing room, directly parodying the supposed real-life situation with Fox. This episode was essentially the show making fun of its own behind-the-scenes drama, but it also helped perpetuate the myth that Fox's departure was over something as trivial as dressing room amenities. In reality, ABC was engaged in a strategic effort to weaken NBC's powerhouse Friday night lineup, and they were determined to lure away the star of Sanford and Son at any cost. The rival network offered Fox a generous salary to host his own variety show, the Red Fox Comedy Hour, which would give him creative control and the opportunity to showcase his stand-up comedy roots in a way that the sitcom format didn't allow. This financial incentive was far more compelling than any dressing room complaint, especially considering that Sanford and Son had made Fox one of the biggest stars on television and ranked in the top 10 virtually every week it aired. ABC's strategy worked perfectly from their perspective, as NBC's ratings dropped continuously after Fox's departure, effectively destroying one of their most successful programs. The truth is that Fox left for the same reason most actors leave successful shows: a better financial opportunity and the chance to have more creative control over his career, not because he was upset about the lack of natural light in his dressing room. Fact 13. Red Fox was only 49, playing 65. When Sanford and Son premiered in January of 1972, Red Fox was actually just 49 years old, but he was so convincing in his portrayal of the 65-year-old Fred Sanford that many viewers assumed the actor was actually elderly in real life. This remarkable age transformation was achieved through Fox's incredible acting ability and his naturally weathered appearance, which had been shaped by decades of hard living and performing in nightclubs across the country. Fox's lifestyle had aged him considerably beyond his actual years, making him the perfect candidate to play a character who was supposed to be 16 years older than he really was. His years of performing in smoky nightclubs, combined with his hard-partying reputation, had given him the kind of lived-in face and demeanor that made Fred Sanford's cantankerous personality completely believable. The comedian's reddish complexion, which had earned him his nickname Chicago Red during his younger years, also contributed to the weathered look that made him appear much older than his true age. This age confusion became a source of frustration for Fox, who frequently complained that people assumed he was actually Fred's age in real life. The actor was concerned that being so closely associated with an elderly character might limit his career opportunities and typecast him as an old man when he was still in his prime working years. Despite being in his late 40s and early 50s during the show's run, many fans and even industry professionals began to think of Fox as genuinely being in his 60s. The irony of this situation was that Fox was actually closer in age to Demond Wilson, who played his son Lamont, than many people realized. Wilson was born in 1946, making him only 24 years younger than Fox. Yet their on-screen relationship as father and son was so convincing that audiences never questioned the age gap. Fox's ability to portray a man significantly older than himself became one of his greatest acting achievements, even though it sometimes frustrated him when people couldn't separate the actor from the character he played so masterfully. Fact 14. Heavy shoes transformed Red into Fred. Red Fox had a very specific and unusual ritual for getting into character as Fred Sanford, and it all came down to putting on a particular pair of heavy work shoes that he claimed were absolutely essential for his transformation into the cantankerous junk dealer. According to Fox, he could put on the rest of Fred's costume and makeup, but he wouldn't truly become the character until he laced up those big, heavy shoes that completely changed the way he walked, thought, and carried himself. In interviews, Fox explained this transformation process by saying, "Just as soon as I put those big heavy shoes on and walk out there, I become Sanford. But not until then, not until I put my shoes on. I can put the rest of the outfit on, but if I don't have those shoes on, I don't walk like him, and I don't think like him." This reveals how much attention Fox paid to the physical details of his character and how important it was for him to feel physically connected to Fred Sanford before he could deliver the performance that audiences loved. The heavy work boots were perfect for the character of Fred Sanford, a man who spent his days hauling junk around his yard and working with his hands in a physically demanding business. These shoes gave Fox the shuffling, deliberate walk that became one of Fred's most recognizable characteristics, and they helped him embody the weariness and physical toll that a lifetime of manual labor would have on a 65-year-old man. This focus on footwear as a key to character development shows Fox's deep understanding of how physical choices can inform an actor's entire performance. The weight and feel of those heavy shoes didn't just change how he moved across the set, but actually influenced how he approached Fred's personality, his posture, and even his attitude toward other characters. It's a fascinating example of how a seemingly small costume detail became the foundation for one of television's most memorable characters, demonstrating Fox's commitment to finding the physical truth of Fred Sanford from the ground up. Fact 15. The G in Fred G. Sanford never had meaning. Throughout the entire six-season run of Sanford and Son, the mystery of what the G in Fred G. Sanford's name actually stood for became one of the show's most enduring running gags, with Red Fox never officially revealing the true meaning behind this middle initial. Instead, the writers and Fox himself used the G as a comedic device, having Fred claim it stood for different words depending on whatever situation he found himself in during each episode. Over the years, Fred would declare that the G stood for various words that fit the moment, including gonna cry, genius, G, grandpa, gompergoo, and gefilte fish, among many others. In one particularly memorable episode titled The Reverend Sanford, Lamont himself got in on the joke by suggesting that the G stood for glory, glory, hallelujah, showing how even the other characters were aware of this ongoing mystery and Fred's tendency to make up meanings on the spot. The running gag became so popular with fans that it added an extra layer of humor to the show, as viewers would wait to see what creative explanation Fred would come up with next, whenever someone asked about his middle initial. This comedic device also reflected Fred's personality perfectly, as it showed his tendency to embellish stories and create elaborate explanations for even the simplest things, which was very much in character for the scheming junk dealer. While Fox never officially revealed what the G was supposed to represent, many fans and television historians have speculated that it might have stood for Glenn, which was the middle name of Fox's real-life older brother Fred Glenn Sanford Jr. This theory makes sense because Fox had named the character Fred Sanford as a tribute to his brother, who had died in 1965, 7 years before the show premiered. Another possibility is that it could have stood for Grady, since Lamont's full name was revealed in an early episode to be Lamont Grady Sanford, suggesting that family names were important to the character's background, even if the writers preferred to keep the mystery alive for comedic purposes.